Hey guys, I'm Wolfie, and today we are going to jump into an article by Mike Silver, NFL Insider. We're going to read about how Jed York is apparently shaking up the front office and taking a more ruthless approach. Words used by Mike Silver himself. When I read you this article, when I read it and then we go over it, it's not going to come off as an opinion piece. It's not going to come off as something small, as in someone just taking a bunch of evidence and putting it together and saying, hey, this is what's happening. When I read this to you, you are going to know the source. You're going to read this and be like, okay, this is definitely from this guy. And who is that guy? It is from Jed York himself. You can tell when I read you this article that the source of this information is from Jed York himself. And that is just my opinion, by the way, but it definitely, certainly reads like that because the way he words things, says things in this article are definite. They're without a doubt saying, hey, this is what's happening. And I'm usually very skeptical. I'm usually very look into the word salad and be like, okay, is this an opinion piece or that's not that big of a deal or something like that? No, I've read this article. And when you read it yourself and when I read it to you, you're going to be like, okay, that is definitely Jed York. So let's go ahead and waste no more time and jump right into this article and break down the shakeup of the 49ers front office and everything going on with the 49ers front office. Let's go ahead and do it. A 49ers organizational reset. Why Jed York figures to take a more ruthless approach. The decision was visceral, emotional, and in retrospect, excruciatingly regrettable. Last August 29th, 5 minutes before 8:30 a.m. team meeting, San Francisco 49ers Kyle Shanahan stood up on his desk, sprinted upstairs, and barged into John Lynch's office, imploring the general manager not to trade the team's most productive wide receiver to the Pittsburgh Steelers. $120 million of Jed York's money hung in the balance, and Shanahan, fresh off a heartbreaking overtime defeat in Super Bowl 58, was desperate to spend it on a player he viewed as indispensable. He viewed it. Kyle Shanahan was like, we cannot let this guy go. He's too good. This was a shocking turn of events, and every second counted. The Brandon Aiyuk contract saga had dragged on throughout the offseason and hijacked the 49ers summer, and Shanahan, Lynch, and York had collectively decided to move on and cut their losses. Yet Aiyuk, who throughout the process has demonstrated emotional immaturity and changed his mind more sharply than he changed directions on the football field, showed up in Shanahan's office that morning, 11 days before the Niners season opener, and expressed a sudden willingness to accept the team's last best offer. This kind of coincides with what I said. This was an offer they had on August 12th, I believe, of last year, and he ended up taking that same exact offer from what the rumors were. So this does seem, based on this, that there was a sudden willingness that he was going to take that offer and accept it. And it does definitely seem to me that this was actually intense. And Aiyuk himself has come out in the press conference saying, hey, I could have been a lot better. I mean, this was kind of awkward. He himself said this was crazy. And it did seem sudden. And it was immature. Aiyuk was immature in this entire process. And Aiyuk is a player that Kyle Shanahan loves. He was a wide receiver he wanted, someone he's excited about. We even saw the dash cam when they drafted Aiyuk. He was ecstatic. This is definitely, without a doubt, Shanahan's guy, Brandon Aiyuk. Now, I think it's a little bit crazy that apparently they hijacked the summer. Shanahan, Lynch, and New York had collectively decided to move on and cut their ties from the losses. And it was that indecision, it was that change of mind, the change of heart that made Shanahan go, that's my guy. Let's make sure we sign him. Shanahan called Lynch, and when the GM didn't answer on the first ring, the coach, fearing a trade was being finalized, stood up and did his best Noah Lyles imitation. Quite possibly, Shanahan hadn't run so fast since his days as Texas slot receiver with oversized shoulder pads at the turn of the century. Again, this reads as this guy knows a lot more than he should. This reads as if we're getting real-time optics of what happened. It's different than, oh, he ran upstairs and this was the case, blah, blah, blah. This reads as if all this information is from someone who was there, someone who knows every detail. It was that type of transactional drama that would have killed on Hard Knocks, but in real life, it serves as a cautionary tale. Suffice to say that inside the 49ers trainers facility, Shanahan's sprint did not age well. To be precise, Ayuk's 4-year, $120 million extension began aging poorly 4 weeks after the player put pen to ink, when he threw a practice field tantrum upon being told by Shanahan to change from red to black mesh shorts. I'm pretty sure this was before this. I'm pretty sure the shorts thing was before this. If this was after, I guess I'm totally wrong. But yes, that is definitely signs to come that he felt a little bit entitled. A little bit of entitlement. And he thought maybe he could get away with a little bit more. In the wake of 6-11 season, a more significant change has taken place. Going all in is out. Coach-driven emotion is no longer a guiding principle. The 49ers are attempting to be cold, calculated, and analytical when it comes to roster decisions on an organizational reset that coincides with the negotiation of a massive contract extension for quarterback Brock Big Cock Purdy. Purdy, the NFL's most underpaid player during his first 3 seasons, wants a lot of York's money, more so than past years. There likely will be a fight for every single penny, which explains why we all know that $57, $58, $59 million should be enough to get this done, and something a lot of 49ers should agree with. But it sounds like there's going to be a lot of more analytical stuff, a lot more seriousness, saying, no, this is the line, this is what we're drawing. And they're taking it very seriously. This vibe is given to me that so far in this article, at this point, that Kyle Shanahan is in the outs. He's no longer going to be making any kind of decisions for the front for John Lynch or Parag or anything like that. That no more emotional lashes are going to justify anything. No more player to coaches like, hey, get this done. Hey, I'm going to do this. Kind of like with Trent Williams when he was like, hey, I'm going to sign with the Chiefs. When he called Kyle Shanahan, I'm going to sign with the Chiefs if you don't get this done. I mean, it kind of worked out. Trent Williams was great, right? But that was an emotional-driven signing in the end when it wasn't calculated. This sounds like Ayuk's situation was a calculated situation, and I've heard early in the article that it was well said and done that this is done. We're moving on from Ayuk, and we're going to trade him. Shanahan, Lynch, and York all agreed, according to this article. Again, this reads as certainty, not an opinion, not something that they collectively put together. This is without doubt, in my opinion, from Jed York himself, this kind of confirmation. That is not to say that York has suddenly become cheap or that after 4 NFC Championship game appearances and 2 narrow Super Bowl losses during a 5-season span, 2019 and 2023, he's no longer desperate to capture the franchise's 6th Lombardi trophy. He's just tired of these emotional responses and spending money in a desperate way when they finally made decisions saying, hey, we can't do this. We're not doing this. And then Kyle comes in and says, hey, you got to make this happen. Because Kyle had a lot of power. We all know that Kyle has a lot of power. We know he has a lot of say. Some people believe that Kyle has more power than John Lynch, and at the tip top, it is all Kyle. This is giving off that's no longer the case. Try as some fans might, it's tough to try to portray an owner who spent an NFL high $334 million on players, actual cash, not salary cap dollars, in 2024 as a penny pincher. It's even tougher to make the case that York got his money's worth. He did not. Between Nick Bosa, Trent Williams, all of them, Ayuk, Samuel, all of it. Biggest disappointment of all time. I think every fan can agree with that. I don't think any fan could disagree with Jed York and what he has to say here, because we all know Jed York is the source of this article. Ayuk, who particularly got off to a slow start before suffering a season-ending knee injury in mid-October, serves as a classic case of buyer's remorse. As my colleague Diana Rossini and I reported last week, the 49ers are open to trading him this offseason. Last week, the 49ers agreed to deal another high-priced wide receiver, Deebo Samuel, to the Washington Commanders for a 5th-round draft pick. It's all part of a natural reordering after York watched big-ticket players such as edge rusher Nick Bosa, left tackle Trent Williams, and running back Chris McCaffrey underwhelm due to injury or lack of productivity during what one coach described as a season from hell. Every 49ers fan can agree that it was a season from hell and that all those 3 players mentioned were underwhelming in every regard. And Deebo Samuel was underwhelming in every regard. We needed him the most. He couldn't show up. He wasn't worth the money he was given. The 49ers got a 5th-round draft pick and got out from under that contract. So they're doing exactly what this article is saying, which is getting out from under and spending money on players that do absolutely nothing for this team. They got out from under that contract of Deebo Samuel. So they did just that. They may have got 5th-round pick. People say not worth it, but they did get out of a contract, which is huge. That opens up more money in 2026 and 2027, which allows you to sign a player this year and backload that contract in 2026 and 2027, so where you can sign a really good free agent. Hell hath no fury like a billionaire scorned. In reality, it's not that dramatic. Loading up for another Super Bowl run made sense after last season, as brutal of a miscalculation as it turned out to be. And York remains highly supportive of Shanahan and Lynch, as he has been since hiring them in 2017. So it's not a dramatic shift in as like this article is making out to be. But the reason why I'm sounding so serious is because this actually has legs to me. This actually sounds like this is Jed York speaking here. And I think that's a big deal, and I feel like it should be treated that way. But it does sound to me that that Jed York is drawing a line, and that's good. I think it's a good thing. I think so far this sounds like a good thing. I think Jed York needs to draw a line between Kyle Shanahan's emotions and let John Lynch and Parag do their job. When they make a decision, go with that decision. I'm really not a fan of making a decision, then honestly changing it later on. I hate that, right? You go on a date, or you go with your wife or husband or whatever, and then they change their mind midway in the drive. Oh, you know what? I'm not doing that. Drives me nuts. But it sounds to me they made a decision, and then Kyle Shanahan says, I'm going to veto that, and this is what we're doing. So let's go ahead and continue with the article. At the time, York was reeling from an innocuous run of firing head coaches, Jim Harbaugh, who had taken the Niners to a Super Bowl, Jim Tomsula, and Chip Kelly. Oh, my God. All right. After 3 consecutive seasons, and was determined to give the newly hired duo the chance to build the team the right way. And I love that. I think he did a great job doing that, saying, hey, let the duo do their job. And that's exactly what he did. So props to Jed York on that. Despite last season's flame out, the owner, coach, and GM remain in alignment. As Lynch's comments about reining in cash expenditure at last week's scouting combine suggest, that coincides with what's being said here. That they're actually thinking about the money more now, right now. They're not just thinking about the talent, they're thinking about the money in the future. Because Jed York is putting in millions of dollars, hundreds, obviously, to try to get a Super Bowl ring, spending the most money of everyone. And yet somehow the Eagles, with the best roster ever, didn't do that, and they won a Super Bowl decisively. The 49ers have not. They end up getting the worst season possibly in the entire Kyle Shanahan era, arguably. Season from hell, right? So this coincides with Lynch's comments saying, hey, that we're focusing more now on the money, trying to go younger. When Lynch said, hey, we're trying to go younger, obviously this seems like a type of thing where we got to stop getting older players. We got to stop getting injury-prone players, paying injury-prone players. It does seem like Jed York drew a line for Lynch and Kyle Shanahan. And while Shanahan may not have been his best coaching job in 2024, his seat is not even lukewarm. He likely regrets his mad sprint up the stairs as much as anybody. Again, this seems like a Jed York comment. This seems like Jed York saying, I'm telling you all this, but Kyle Shanahan's not fired, though. Lynch is not fired. I'm not putting him on there. I'm just drawing a line. That's what this article seems like. And when he says he likely regrets his mad sprint up the stairs as much as anybody, that also seems like Jed York is saying, hey, Kyle Shanahan told me this. It seems like it's obvious that Kyle Shanahan regrets paying him. Because now, with that signing and with this situation, it's causing this line to be drawn. It's gotten us here, that signing. So, with that being said, definitely a regret. But like I keep saying, it's very hard to hold someone accountable for a mistake when you didn't know the respect situation of he was going to be terrible through 7 weeks. Did not see that coming. I didn't see that coming. Did not see the fact that he was going to obliterate his knee. I didn't see that coming. Right? I know for a fact if they saw that coming, they knew all those variables were coming their way, they wouldn't have signed him. Kyle Shanahan would not sprint upstairs to make it happen. Right? So jumping to the next thing. That said, it makes sense that York would prefer Shanahan focusing on doing what he does best, scheming it up and coaching the players on the roster, than worrying about making sure so many of his highest profile players make bank. I love this. Absolutely love this. He needs to focus on just scheming it up and focusing on the players that are on his roster and let his partner in crime do the work. Let John Lynch do the work. He's a player's GM. He's been a player before. He knows what it's like. When they make a decision, when Lynch and Paraag make a decision, let them do it. I love this. This is something I really enjoy because Kyle Shanahan does need to focus on that. Shanahan, as we all know, has a tier of players and coaches that get high priority. He will shoot through the moon for the guy. He'll do whatever he can to satisfy those players. And Aiyuk was one of them. Debo is one of them. It does seem to me that they're now drawing a line saying, hey, we're not doing this anymore. We're not doing this. You focus on being a coach. You focus on the players we give you. Now, does that mean that he's not going to have any decision on the draft or anything like that? Of course not. I'd be shocked if he doesn't any say about players in the draft. But as for signing players, extending them, I'd argue that he's just got less of a priority and less of a foothold or a stronghold on player personnel. A line's being drawn. Let Lynch, let Paraag do their job. Let them do their work. Sometimes forging strong locker room relationships can complicate business decisions. 3 years ago, after Samuel wanted a massive extension and publicly demanded trade, Shanahan and Lynch got on an airplane, met with the disgruntled player in an unsuccessful effort to placate him. Eventually, they got Samuel back into the fold with a 3-year, $71.55 million deal that also proved to be ill-advised. It seems to me that Kyle Shanahan is just not good with wide receivers. We all know that he used to be wide receiver, and he's got a soft spot for that position. That actually kind of makes sense. The Aiyuk situation, the Debo situation, he's got a soft spot for wide receivers. It is apparent. It is obvious. Clear as day. On Thursday, Samuel, in an article he penned for the Players Tribune, said, this soon-to-be former coach, the relationship that me and Kyle got is ridiculous. More than just the coach and the player, Kyle knows damn near everything that I've been through in my life, and I damn near know everything he been through. It's like that. It's a bond you can never break. And that's what we mean. That kind of stands up to everything else I said, that Kyle has a tier of players where he has a great relationship for them and they get special treatment. They just do. It was apparent in the Rams game last year where it cost us a playoff game. It was apparent in the Super Bowl. It's apparent that Kyle Shanahan mixes business with friends. And that's not a good mix. So it's good to see that Jed York is drawing a line saying, hey, cut that out. Enough of that. Perhaps not, but the 49ers reached a breaking point after 2024 season in which Samuels showed up to training camp in great shape. I did hear about that. Looked like the best player on the practice field and proceeded to plummet sharply. Among other lowlights, he ballooned to 20 pounds over his ideal playing weight. He later yelled at the 49ers kicker and long snapper and choked him out after a missed field goal and publicly complained about his lack of touches, even though he had just enough touches. He had enough to prove himself, only to drop a possible touchdown pass the team season on the line in a 12-6 defeat to the Los Angeles Rams in mid-December. At 29, he appears to be a player in sharp decline without a doubt. We got better by getting rid of this player. I'm telling you right now. He cost us the 2024 season by being terrible and that Rams game. He cost us the Super Bowl with 11 targets and 3 receptions. Could not get separation. He should not have been the priority. Juwan Jennings, sure, that was a good choice. But Aiyuk should have been the next priority after that. It was Juwan Jennings, then Debo, then Aiyuk. It was the wrong order, and he messed up there. That's a risk Commanders general manager Adam Peters, once Lynch's top front office lieutenant, was willing to take. Peters, former employer, has other issues to confront. As good as the 49ers have been on the field since 2019, they've appeared strangely vulnerable in the negotiating realm. In addition to Samuel 3 years ago and Aiyuk last season, tight end George Kittle, Bosa, Williams all signed deals in August or later. That sapped organizational energy. Samuel Bosa each later admitted that the disputes had taken a personal toll that they attributed in part to subpar seasons, all of which bring us to a current state of the franchise and the prospect of a drawn-out contentious negotiation with Brock Purdy. That's what happens when you mix friendships with business. It takes its toll. You get conflictions. It becomes a problem. When you allow Kyle Shanahan, who becomes friends with these players, who gets close to them, you're taking a toll on them as well. It causes confliction, saying, hey, you guys scratch my back. No, you guys scratch my back. And it becomes a whole issue. It's no longer has become a business situation. By cutting Kyle Shanahan from these decisions, by saying, hey, you cannot override John Lynch, you cannot override Parag, you cut out the friendship part, you cut out that business. It's just straight business from there. I'm not saying, I don't read this as Lynch has to do certain, is cut out now. I'm not reading this as Parag makes all the decisions now. I'm reading this as John Lynch and Parag, who are a team, have a little bit more power. I'm reading this as John Lynch and Parag get to cut out the friendship part of Kyle Shanahan. And again, we've already said that. We already put it out there that Kyle Shanahan is not on the hot seat. It's just that Jed York is drawing the line. Hey, I still like Kyle, still on the team. I don't think he's going to get fired. I'm not going to fire him. And I'm enough with these emotional decisions. Enough of these friendship, scratching my back, scratch my back stuff. Because it's true. Jed York is not getting the value out of what he's paying these players. Jed York is right. And that's crazy to say because I used to not like Jed York, but he's right. He's right. Selected the 202nd second and final pick of the 2020 draft, Purdy, as per the NFL's rookie wage scale, has yet to be adequately compensated for his unlikely emergence as a top-flight quarterback. Now that he's finally eligible for an extension, he'll want one commensurate with his accomplishments. I totally butchered that word. Purdy finished with fourth in MVP voting in 2023 and lost the Super Bowl to Patrick Mahomes in overtime. His numbers dipped last season when McCaffrey, Williams, and other key players were sidelined for significant stretches, leaving little to no weapons, by the way, and a poor offensive line. A deal should be doable. I agree. But it's easy to see how things could get messy. The 49ers can freely proclaim to the world that Purdy remains under contract. He's due to earn $5.2 million in 2025 and could theoretically be franchised in each of the following two seasons. Conversely, Purdy's camp can float the possibility of a holdout with something that could potentially hijack the 2025 season in a manner that would make last year's Isaac saga look like a warm-up act. I think they're saying, with this being said, it sounds to me that we cannot have this, we cannot have the drama get out of hand. When we make decisions, we have to make decisions. If we have to make cold-hearted decisions, we have to make cold-hearted. If we have to trade him, we have to trade him. If we're penny pinching every single bit of the way, then we're going to get screwed. We have to know what's right for the team. And if we think this is right for the team, we got to stick with it. Ayuk, they thought it was right to trade him. Emotionally, Kyle Shanahan came up and said no. So whatever decision they're going to make on Brock Purdy, they need to make it. That's the vibe I'm getting. Not no, let's just wait, and then wait and let it drag on and drag on. No, it's going to be let's make a decision. We have to make a decision. That's what it seems like to me. They're no longer, because we all know that's exactly what they did. That's what they do. They drag on these contracts. Unlike any of these teams out here, man, they let things drag on far too often where they don't make decisions and they miss out to the point where, honestly, other players get extensions and then they have to pay more money. So I do agree that they need to be a little bit more cutthroat. I do agree that they need to make, okay, once we make a decision, this is our decision. That's the vibe I'm getting. Will it come to that? Shanahan and Lynch clearly hope it won't. They prefer to lock up their QB1 for years to come and focus on other matters. For example, can they convince Bosa's big brother Joey, recently released by the Chargers, to come to the Niners as a bookend end rusher at a relative discount? He should. He really honestly should. It should not cost a lot of money. I would like him on the team, but availability is the best ability. Can they get one of Shanahan's favorite players, soon-to-be free agent linebacker Dwayne Greenlaw, to rebuff other suitors and return on a one-year prove-it deal after an injury-impacted season? Probably not. Can they get an extension done with Kittle? Probably will. Who's heading into the final year of his contract that makes sense for both sides? They'll probably get that done, I'm sure. In past years, as he decided whether to dole out massive signing bonuses to Purdy, York might have been swayed by his coaches and GM's conviction. This time, I expect the owner and his chief negotiator, executive vice president of football operations, Parag Maratha, to be as ruthless as they deem appropriate. Pretty much saying, hey, we can't do this. Or, hey, I'm not doing this. Because Jed York, right? And Parag, obviously, are part of the team. Parag puts it on as part of his pocket, part of his money, and saying, hey, you're going to spend this money. Hey, you're going to do this. This tells me that they're going to take this a lot seriously. And like I said, a lot more cutthroat. And no longer this wiggle room of like, hey, we're doing it this way. Hey, we're going to go this far and we're going to push a little bit further than what you want here because we have to. It does seem like there's going to be a lot less control and a little more John Lynch and Parag and York than these I love this player kind of type approach. I love this guy. We're great friends with him approach. Parag and Marath, Parag is probably going to be like, hey, we can't do this. And they have to stick to that. Again, make a decision. Stick to that decision. And if Jed York says, hey, with Parag's back, saying, hey, we can't do this. We're not doing this. I'm not paying that to a player who hasn't given me shit. I like that. I like this approach from Jed York. I really do. Because Kyle Shanahan and John Lynch need to be reeled back a little bit. More so Kyle Shanahan. This seems way more of a Shanahan thing than a John Lynch thing. This seems more like Shanahan's going to lose a little bit more power and focus more on coaching and focus more on the rosters that the players he ends up getting, because it's cost Jed York a lot of money and he's got nothing out of it. He's gotten more mistakes than great decisions out of it. When a lot of these decisions were probably like, hey, Jed York's like, I don't want to do that. And now you've used your cards, Shanahan. You've used up your cards, used up all your opportunities to prove him wrong, and all you did was just prove him right. And now Jed York's like, no, we're now doing this. We're no longer going our way to make this happen. Great players are great players, sure, but we have to draw the line, and I agree with that. Shanahan and Lynch used 3 first-round draft picks to land the presumptive franchise quarterback Trey Lance with the number 3 selection. It proved to be unmitigated disaster that could have set the franchise back years. And when Shanahan sidled up to York after a 22 training camp practice and explained, I think our third-string quarterback's our best quarterback, York's first protocol was not to celebrate his coach's assessment of Purdy. I agree. I totally agree, because you just pushed back this franchise, and you're telling me that the 7th round pick is better than the guy who spent 3 first-round draft picks. I want a Super Bowl, man. And luckily the 49ers are great at drafting, because if they weren't, Kyle Shanahan probably would be fired. This probably would have happened a lot sooner rather than later. One thing owners don't love to hear when they invested money or in draft picks into people is that the last pick of the draft is the guy we think is best. That's exactly what York said. I do remember this interview, actually. That's generally not great news. And I don't blame him. You're putting a lot of money into a guy who ends up doing nothing for you. And if there was some mistakes that was driven by emotion that were bad, but then some of them were actually good and they actually worked out, like Trent Williams, I'd say kind of worked out. CMC, for the most part, kind of worked out, except for this past year. But there seems like way too many big decisions made where it just doesn't work out. And he's tired of dishing out money to people who are not playing on his team anymore, to people who are not contributing to his team anymore. I understand that. I would hate that. I would hate to have to pay players that are doing nothing for me as if they're being paid because as if they're doing something. I would be really upset, super upset. Another thing owners don't love, shelling out millions of dollars to players who don't produce, especially when those decisions are arguably impacted by impulse and emotion. Let's put it this way. If you're an owner and your head coach feels compelled to sprint upstairs to get you to commit $120 million to a player prone to throwing tantrums over the color of his practice shorts, you hope that coach is built like Andy Reid, or that your general manager's office door has a really strong deadbolt. That is the article from Mike Silver. And again, this sounds like to me a Jed York conversation. This sounds like to me that Jed York went to Mike Silver and said, hey, let's have a conversation. This is how I feel. I think the 49ers are going to make decisions saying, hey, we need this guy because he's good. We're going to make this guy because he does contribute. We need this guy because he's our franchise quarterback, such as Purdy. If things get out of hand, if certain players are divas and they're not exactly worth that contract, they're not going to feel compelled to force their hand. That's what it seems like to me. It seems like Kyle Shanahan is going to have less influence now on those kind of decisions, where Parag, Jed York, and John Lynch will have a lot more freedom and say, hey, we need to build a roster that can win. We need to build a roster by making tough decisions, by letting go of players that we love, letting go of players that we connect with, because at the end of the day, they don't produce. They're doing nothing. And in the end, in Jed York's shoes, my investments are going nowhere. I'm getting nothing out of it. While they're looking at the Eagles and other teams who have investments and letting go of key players. Like the Chiefs are letting go of key players. It's still, they make the playoffs and win Super Bowls. The Eagles let go of some key players, but they still go to the playoffs and they just won a Super Bowl. I understand exactly where Jed York is coming from, where you need to let the GM do his job. You need to let Parag do his job. Because I agree. It sounds to me that Jed York is like, am I not getting the production I need out of these players? You're restricting the salary cap to where we can't even make moves for other players. I love this from Jed York. I love the fact that he's stepping in and telling Kyle, because a lot of people said that Kyle Shanahan has this ego that needs to be put in check. Kyle Shanahan has too much power. That's what a lot of 49ers fans say. Well, guess what? It seems to me that power has been a little bit taken from him. I wouldn't say completely, because obviously he's still a leader of men, still a leader of the entire team. He's still the head coach. He's still got to make decisions. But it does seem to me that if Kyle Shanahan has to run upstairs or fight for another player, even though he's not worth it, or proven that he's not worth it, or if it goes outside of their realm of what they can pay truly, they will put their foot down and say, no, Kyle, we can't. We're trading him. We're moving on. I fucking love that. Because now it feels like way more of a team. Now it feels more like Kyle has less power. Lynch can actually make more decisions now, and so can Parag. Parag and Lynch can actually work together now to build an actual roster. Because of Kyle Shanahan's emotions and because of Kyle Shanahan's ego and need to fulfill a friendship's satisfaction, we almost got stuck with Debo's contract for years. Luckily, we got out of that. Some other players saying, hey, we need this guy. And now we're stuck with him for years. Instead of saying, hey, we cannot do this. You're going to cap strict us for players that are not even worth it when we can get something out of it now. I love this. I love this for Kyle Shanahan. I truly do. And again, Jed York has said he's not in the hot seat. It's just that we're no longer going to take this emotional approach. John Lynch is going to do his job. Parag is going to do his job. And if we come to a decision on a player, we are doing it. No more dragging it on and saying, hey, you know what? I could probably get this guy to do it. Hey, if we wait a little bit longer, we could probably get this guy to do it. No more of that. Love it. As for Brock Purdy, that could be bad because if they can't get a deal done, it does seem to me they'll make a decision. It sounds to me, based on that article, that they will put their foot down and say, well, you're paying on your $5.1 million deal if you don't take this, or we're trading you. It sounds to me they're no longer letting these things drag out where it gets more expensive because other players get extended, or it causes more drama than you asked for, which jeopardizes the entire season. Because if you make decisions earlier in the year, in April or May, you can build things up, fix things, prepare yourself in the training camp and preseason for a better 2025 season. It will not be a good 2025 season if Brock Purdy isn't signed by training camp, isn't signed by preseason. They cannot mess around with that. So I agree with Jed York here. Take the power away, take the emotion away, and let John Lynch and Parag make decisions. And Kyle Shanahan, yes, I'm sure will have some say saying, hey, I like this guy because of this X, Y, and Z. But no more of this running up the stairs, got my guy to agree this deal. No, we made a decision. We're moving on. We knew who he was. We're moving on. No more of your friendship bullshit. So I still think Kyle has some say, but just no more going back on decisions and more of like, we're doing this and we're doing that. I like it. I truly do. So thank you guys so much for watching this video. Let me know what you guys think of this article as we went through it. Do you think that John Lynch has also lost more power? Do you think Kyle Shanahan and both of them lost a lot of power? Do you agree with Jed York? Do you disagree with Jed York? Do you think Parag is pretty much the man now and everyone else is out? You let me know in the comment section. And this is actually wild. I think this is a crazy thing. This just felt a lot more powerful. This felt a lot more serious. And I love it. I agree with it. We got the coaches we need. We're getting rid of dead weight. I love it. I love the decisions we're making. Tough decisions at that. I love it. So let me know what your comment section what you guys think. And be sure to like the live because every single like makes my 49ers heart grow from here to here. All love, fam. I'll see you next video. Bang, bang out a gang, baby.